Welcome back to The Observable Unknown. Tonight, we turn towards something so constant that it rarely draws attention. Not the voice you're hearing now, but the one that speaks when no sound is made. When you think in words, when you silently rehearse a sentence, when you narrate your life, comfort yourself, or argue inwardly. Who exactly is speaking? The modern study of inner speech begins with the Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky. In the 1920s and early 1930s, working in Moscow, Vygotsky proposed an idea that quietly overturned assumptions about consciousness. Thought, he argued, does not begin as private. It begins as dialogue. Children speak first with others, then aloud to themselves. Only later does this speech compress, fragment, and fold inward. Inner speech, in this view, is not thought translated into language. It is language transformed into thought. Vygotsky observed that internal speech loses grammatical completeness. Subjects vanish, syntax collapses, meaning remains. The observable unknown here is subtle but destabilizing. Consciousness may not originate inside the skull. It may be inherited from conversation. Late 20th century neuroscience made it possible to test this directly. Functional magnetic resonance imaging studies conducted across Europe and North America repeatedly demonstrate that silent thinking in words activates many of the same neural regions involved in spoken language. Broca's region in the left frontal lobe associated with speech production. Wernicke's area in the temporal lobe associated with comprehension. The supplementary motor area involved in preparing articulation. Even portions of the auditory cortex, as though the brain were listening to itself. When you read silently or think in words, the brain behaves as if speech is about to occur and is deliberately restrained. This is known as subvocalization. Micro-movements prepare the vocal apparatus, then halt. The mind whispers, the body almost answers. Inner speech plays a structural role in working memory. Psychologist Alan Badley, in the 1970s, proposed the phonological loop. The system consists of a brief auditory store and an internal rehearsal mechanism. When you repeat a phone number silently, you're not storing digits, you're speaking inwardly again and again. The self reveals itself here as procedural. The voice inside is not decoration, it's scaffolding. But there's another more unsettling question. What if the inner voice itself is the architecture of obedience and not timeless at all? In 1976, psychologist Julian Jaynes published The Origin of Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind. Dr. Jaynes proposed one of the most audacious theories of mind in the 20th century. He suggested that ancient human consciousness did not resemble our own at all. Instead, it quite remarkably operated through what he called the bicameral mind. In this model, the neural systems responsible for language were functionally divided. The regions we now associate with speech production and comprehension, primarily Broca's region in the frontal lobe and Wernicke's area near the temporal and parietal junction, did not yet collaborate in reflective self-narration. Rather, they participated in a hierarchical loop of command and obedience. Jaynes argued that the right hemisphere counterparts of these language regions generated internally produced verbal signals. These signals were not experienced as thoughts. They were perceived as external voices, issuing instructions with authority and urgency. The left hemisphere, which managed action and response, did not question these messages. It listened and complied. To the ancient mind, these voices were not hallucinations, they were gods, ancestors, kings, or spirits. What we would now call internal guidance was once experienced as divine command. From this perspective, introspection did not yet exist. Decision-making was not accompanied by deliberation or inner debate. Conscious choice, as we understand it today, hadn't fully emerged. The left hemisphere language centers, including Broca's region for speech production and Wernicke's area for comprehension, were already anatomically present. They were connected by the arcuate fasciculus, a bundle of nerve fibers that allows language to be produced and understood. What differed was not structure, but experience. Language had not yet turned inward. Jaynes believed that the gradual breakdown of this bicameral organization, beginning roughly 3,000 years ago, marked the birth of modern consciousness. As societies grew more complex and environmental pressures intensified, reliance on unquestioned auditory command became maladaptive. The voice of the gods fell silent. In its place arose the inner voice of self-reflection. Jaynes also also suggested that certain modern phenomena may echo this earlier mode of mind. Auditory hallucinations in schizophrenia, possession states, and some hypnotic experiences may reflect a partial reactivation of this ancient pattern, where internally generated speech is no longer recognized as self-authored. Contemporary neuroimaging research has shown that individuals experiencing auditory hallucinations often exhibit increased activity in right hemisphere regions analogous to classical language areas. While this does not confirm Jaynes' broader historical claims, it absolutely lends intriguing support to the neurological localization he proposed. The controversy remains profound. Jaynes' theory is not consensus science, yet it endures because it asks a question most models avoid entirely. What if the voice inside your head is not simply a tool of thought, but the evolutionary residue of a mind that once listened rather than reflected? Contemporary research supports an interesting aspect of Jaynes' intuition that inner speech varies dramatically across individuals. Psychologist Russell Hurlburt, using descriptive experience sampling, found that some people experience a near constant inner narrator. Others report intermittent phrases, yet others think primarily in images or abstract relations. Many report long stretches of silence. There is no single architecture of mind. Identity, it seems, is not a fixed organ. It is a style of narration. In certain psychiatric conditions, inner speech becomes unmoored. Research by Chris Frith in the 1990s explored auditory hallucinations in certain psychotic states. His work suggested that hallucinatory voices may arise when inner speech is generated without a corresponding sense of self-authorship. The brain speaks, but the ownership signal fails. Pathology is not the presence of a voice. It may just be the loss of recognition. Jaynes' hypothesis echoes here, not as explanation, but as warning. When the voice is no longer recognized as internal, meaning fractures. Contemplative traditions have long known that the inner voice is malleable. Neuroimaging studies of experienced meditators, conducted at institutions including Harvard and the University of Wisconsin, show reduced activation in language-related cortical regions during deep practice. The voice does not vanish, it loosens. Narrative yields to presence, commentary yields to perception. The mind still knows, it simply no longer needs to speak so loudly. If inner speech can be inherited, shaped, intensified, or softened, then the self may not be a singular authority. It may be the most persuasive voice in an internal chorus. The observable unknown is not silence, it is authorship. Who is speaking and who is listening when thought takes the form of sound without air? Tonight, as you notice the voice that accompanies you towards sleep, do not argue with it, do not obey it, simply recognize it. Language turned inward, dialogue made private, a trace of others living on inside you. If this interlude has stirred reflection, I would love to hear from you. You can write to me at theobservableunknown@gmail.com or text reflections or questions to 336-675-5836. And wherever you listen, please consider leaving a review and rating. Your words help this work reach those who need it most. Thank you for listening, for thinking, for noticing the voice that lives on inside. Until next time, this has been The Observable Unknown.